Hello, everybody. Welcome into SportsDay Insiders presented by the Dallas Morning News. I am Kevin Sherrington, joined by my pals, Grant and Calvin Watkins. It was a big week last week locally. We had a lot of stuff happening, led principally by the fact that the Cowboys had a draft that everybody seemed to like. Everybody except Calvin. Calvin didn't like it. He took a little. Calvin took a little heat from one of our old pals, out in a former member of the Cowboys organization, for giving him a B. I didn't have a problem with you calling it a B, Calvin, because the first round though was good. So let's talk about that and how the Caleb Downs from the safety from Ohio State fell to the Cowboys. They did trade up to 11 from 12 and gave up a couple of fifth-round draft picks to do that. So first of all, let's start right there, Calvin. When they made the trade up, they were afraid at that point that somebody else was going to trade in and get him. Have we gotten any kind of intelligence to tell us what somebody else might have been?
Well, they swapped with Miami, right? And so Miami got a tackle. So and I think maybe we saw the Rams, they get a quarterback. So I think I wouldn't say the Cowboys panicked. I would say the Cowboys felt like, you know what? Miami called us. They want to make sure they get they called Miami and said, let's get our safety because this is the best time to get him. Because Stephen Jones said he didn't think he could get into the top 5. So, and yeah, I think, Caleb Downs slid a little bit.
Do you think
to
that
them because he was I think he was a top 5 pick, right?
Sure.
Because I thought Sonny Styles would be there over Caleb Downs.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit, because before the draft, Stephen Jones had said, "Well, we're not trading into the top 5." That he did say though that from 6 down, that was a possibility, right?
Right. That was a possibility.
And at that point, when we thought, and Joe Hoyt thought in his prediction that the Giants would take Caleb Downs right at 5, and which they did not do that.
They get Reese. They get Arvell Reese, who was a dynamic pass rusher from Ohio State. Yeah,
and I don't fault them for that, right?
Draft.
What's that?
He hates this draft.
Who does?
Calvin.
Yeah, you're right. I hate this draft.
Calvin doesn't hate this.
The problem I have with the draft, and I think I've gotten this as I've gotten older, is that we don't know, right? And the Cowboys don't know. So they get Caleb Downs, who's a safety, right? And he's box safety, plays the nickel, all these kinds of things. Then the second pick that they get is a kid from UCF, Malachi Lawrence. And the last I checked, the last guy they got from UCF was Tristan Hill in the second round. And he was falling asleep in meetings and telling Dak Prescott he's never won anything. So I have PTSD from UCF. So
well, you should have the same for anybody they draft from Michigan, right?
Yes, Michigan too. I mean, just stay away.
Well, and they did not do that.
Says Georgia. Get those kinds of players from Georgia. That's what the Eagles do. They go to where the ball players are, right? They go to where these guys are playing the national championship game almost every other year. That's where they go. I think me and you've talked about this, Kevin, quite a bit about going where the big schools are, right?
Yeah.
So they did that with the Ohio State kid. Then they went back to the old ways and said, we got this big, tall kid at defensive end. So, but back to the original point, I don't think they panicked. I think they just said, let's just get our safety and move and keep it moving, right?
Yeah.
So that's what they did. And then further down, they flopped with Philly. So Philly could get this receiver that they stole from the Steelers.
Kyle Levin.
Yeah, and so then they get Malachi Lawrence. So I have no problem with them and what they did with the trade, because in that second trade with Philadelphia, they were able to get a bunch of 4th-round picks, right? Which was a good thing because they felt like getting 4th-rounders have turned into starters, which is what Dak Prescott is.
Yeah, and
I mean,
this draft is supposedly strong 2 through 5, right? It's a little
that's what
thin in
they
the
tell
first round.
us.
That's what they
That's what
tell
they
us.
tell us. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what they tell
So
us.
I will ask Evan, real quickly. I want to ask one question. So they traded down from 20 to 23 and got 2 fourths to do that in the trade with the Eagles. At that time, Akeem Mesidor was still on the board, as I recall. And I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you. So the Cowboys clearly did not like Akeem Mesidor as much as they like Malachi Lawrence. Is that because of the size?
Yes, it's interesting you say that because as you look back on the first round, I think it was Friday night. I was talking to Joe Hoyt, so I write down all the picks, and I go, I guess he didn't like Mesidor from Miami, right? And he's like, yeah, I guess not. Another big school guy, right? So they're looking at measurables, the size and all that kind of jazz, and that's okay. I'd rather you get ball players than size. Give me some ball players. Because when I see Caleb Downs walk in the building, I go, I'm almost as tall as him, right? And he's
Yeah,
a safety.
he's not a big guy.
He's not a big guy, but he's a safety. And they're comparing him to Darren Woodson, and you're calling Darren Woodson. I'm like, hold up a minute. Darren Woodson is twice the size of this guy. So, but hey, that's everybody's journey right now. So we'll see how this draft goes. But yes, I thought Mesidor they didn't like him apparently because he was on the board.
I wonder how much of the feeling about Mesidor was that he's 25 years old, I think, and so you're starting out with a guy who's I'm assuming that Lawrence is probably 3 or 4 years.
22.
He's 22,
Yeah.
so he's 3 years younger
Mm-hmm.
than that.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of an issue, and maybe part of an issue is that you had a pretty good defensive end opposite him, you know. Although you could say the same thing about David Bailey at Texas Tech, he had a really good defensive line, and that has to be a factor here at some point too. When you talk about these guys, and look, I like Caleb Downs. He seems like a really smart guy, and I think that is one of the things that they need in that secondary, on that defense in particular, is to have guys put that together. I think that speaking of Darren Woodson, he did say at some point we knew that he didn't. We knew that he liked that pick. We also know that afterwards he has said that this he felt like the big problem on the Cowboys defense last year was it just no one knew what they were doing. He says not as much a problem of talent as it was just guys weren't coordinated back there. They didn't understand the concept of what they were trying to do, and so he feels like that Caleb Downs can do that. So we'll see if he can. I did want to ask you about another pick on here, and that was when they drafted the cornerback from Florida, and they at that time Malik Muhammad, cornerback from Texas, was still on the board. And going back to your point about measurables, Devin Moore, the cornerback from Florida, was almost 6'4", and they took him. ESPN, and I'm not saying that they're the end all and be all of ranking this stuff. And the Cowboys, they give their guys their grades, and if their guy works out better, then more power to them. But on ESPN's board, Devin Moore was the 15th best cornerback in the draft, and Malik Muhammad was the 8th best cornerback in the draft. So, to your point about size and measurables, to me, that just spoke to the fact that we like this guy better because he's 6'4".
Yeah. The problem I had with that pick was that going back to his senior year of high school, he's missed some football games because of an injury, right?
Uh-huh.
Now, it's not because his two ligaments have torn or whatever. It's AC joint, concussion, shoulder. Then he had a sports hernia, when he missed the Senior Bowl and those kinds of things. And Will McClay had to address the health issues and said, "Hey, our doctors cleared him. They feel like he's fine." So that was the only issue I had with Devin Moore was the health. I do like Malik Muhammad, the kid from Texas, but like you said, the measurables is what you want. I mean, Christian Parker, the new defensive coordinator, he wants big, tall, long, smart defensive players. He doesn't want short guys like me running around on a football field. He wants tall men that can. He wants Deacon Jones at every position, right? So we'll see what happens.
So Christian, how much say do you think Christian Parker had in all of this?
He had a lot to say because they got players that that fit his scheme, players that you can put in multiple positions. Caleb Downs can play the slot. He can play in the box. They like him. Lawrence, he can put him inside. You can put him off edge. You can make him an outside linebacker. Even now Moore, the corner, he's more of a outside corner. Um, LT Overton, he's a guy you can play multiple spots. So they did a lot of different things where guys are interchangeable. Even the tackle they got from Penn State, Drew Shelton, I'm thinking, he played left tackle all 4 years at Penn State, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're talking to Shadi, and Shadi says, "Oh, we're gonna put him inside at guard." I go, "Oh." So they want guys with position flexibility. That's the key word with the Cowboys these days is flexibility. So playing one position is not good enough for them unless
All
you're a
right,
quarterback.
Speaking of Shelton, so you said they could put him inside. Is there any possible way? Does that mean? Are they just because I know that they did not re-sign a couple of the guys that they had in at the guard. Does that mean he's just going to give them some depth at that point? Or is there a possibility he could end up at some point being a starter and maybe Tyler Smith kicks out the left tackle?
I think Tyler Smith goes to left tackle if Tyler Guyton doesn't show that he could be the starting left tackle of the future. And if you make if you make Tyler Smith the left tackle, you got to give him more money, and he's made that abundantly clear. So the Cowboys said, "Well, whoa, we don't want to give you more money, but let's hold off on the position change." So, and not so much because of the money, but they want to give Tyler Guyton another opportunity because he's had some health issues the first 2 years he's been in the NFL. So, I think they want to hold off on that. And if Guyton struggles to play left tackle, then Guyton's going outside, and then Smith's going outside, and then this whole thing's a disaster. So we'll see.
So well, let me ask Evan first of all. Evan, I'm sorry, I've kind of hogged the whole interview here with Calvin. So you got something you want to ask?
Oh no, we've moved way past that. You just plow
way
right
past. Way.
I mean, you're down to like the fourth round. I mean, I was still stuck back in the first round. I was
what is
still
there?
going through
There's
the
something you'd like to say about the first round?
I'm sorry. What was it that you were interrupting my saying? I'm sorry.
Well, was there something in the first? I thought you were. I'm sorry. I apologize. I thought you were still eating. So that's why I was talking so much. In the first round, Evan, if you'd like to talk about that, we'd love for you to talk about it. The fact that the Cowboys got a guy that the fans were excited about, I thought was something too. I mean, I think there was a little bit of a feeling out there, right, Calvin, about well, maybe they take a wide receiver here because they weren't sure what they were going to do with George Pickens, who had signed his franchise tag the same day, and so
No, he said he was.
Oh, he said he was. Okay.
He said he still hasn't signed it yet as of we're doing this podcast. Still waiting for the signature.
Right, a very good point to make there, and apparently that had nothing to do with anything, though, right? Him saying that.
Yes, it was interesting, but Pickens, this came from Pickens' side that he's going to sign the franchise tag, right? Just before the start of the draft. So me and Joe Hoyt are going, they're trading him, right? They might not trade him Thursday night, but he's going to get traded because he's probably said to the team, look, you don't want to give me a long-term deal, so I'm out. But I'm going to sign this tag so everybody knows that I'm going to show up, right? And even Stephen Jones said to us, I was surprised he said he was going to sign the tag. I'm like, whoa. So Pickens was this wild card out there about being used as trade bait, and he never got traded. He hasn't signed the tag. He hasn't showed up for the offseason workout, which started on Monday. So it didn't affect what they did. They still draft to their board. They did get a receiver, in the last day of the draft. He's just more of a special teams guy. So I think George Pickens will sign the tag. It wouldn't surprise me if he got traded because there's some teams that still need a receiver, right? New England apparently is going to trade for A.J. Brown. Baltimore drafted 2 receivers, but I'm sure if the Cowboys like one of those receivers, hey, maybe you get one of those receivers for Pickens. Who knows, right? So there's still a lot of unknowns here with this football team.
So what do you think they still need to do here in the draft? They did not. So they went out and traded for D. Winters, former TCU linebacker, who had a nice year for the 49ers last year. Yeah, I liked D. Winters in college, and he did have a nice season. But it makes me wonder a little bit here. So why were the 49ers getting rid of him? Why were they willing to do that?
Yeah, it's interesting. He's in the last year of his deal, and I'm sure they felt like this guy wants a little bit more money, want to go a little bit younger. This was a guy they've been talking about for the last 6 weeks, according to Stephen Jones. Like when they made the deal to get a 3rd-round pick for Osa Odighizuwa, they also talked about D. Winters. And so they said, let's table that and let's see what you get in the draft, right? So say they would have got Sonny Styles in the 1st round over, say, Caleb Downs, then I don't think D. Winters is here, So,
right.
but once they got Downs, they said, "All right, let's get the deal to get Winters." So, I mean, you have to wonder how much money did he want from the Niners, and I think the Niners probably figured, we got a young kid coming up on the depth chart, so let's move on from him. So it's not a big deal, but this is a guy who I think could still play a little bit, and of all the moves they made in the off season, I would say getting Winters, a veteran Mike linebacker, is probably in the top 5 of all the moves that they made.
Okay.
This is a lot like watching the Rangers offense. I'm equating my opportunity to speak, waiting for my opportunity to speak, with equating waiting for the Rangers to score, because it just never comes. And I mean, Kevin gave me this opportunity, then took it away. It's amazing. I have one thing to say and one thing only, and that is this. I share the same PTSD that Calvin does about the draft, whether it's the baseball draft or the NFL draft. I think this draft comes down to Malachi Lawrence's performance. Sonny Styles is going to be a contributor. Is he a franchise level?
Caleb Downs.
Caleb Downs. I'm sorry. You guys got off on Sonny Styles for a minute.
Sorry that we messed you up by talking about Sonny Styles.
Are you familiar with dyslexic thinking, Kevin?
I'm familiar with your thinking, and that's all I need to know.
By the way, dyslexic thinking was the defense theory in the speeding case I was called to trial on the other day as a juror. But that's a story for another day. They got what they needed, right? For me, and for what we went through in this whole draft process, I think there were 5 guys that they had to hit on in the 1st round. One, it was either Reese, Bailey, Downs, Styles, or maybe Delane, right? There were 5 guys. They had to come away with one of those 5 guys. They got one. The 2nd pick in the 1st round, I do think that there's some mixed feelings on Lawrence, and whether or not he becomes a major contributor, I think will determine whether or not this draft is a home run or whether it's just another Cowboys draft. They'll get a productive player, but will they get a guy who really helps their offense? And I do think the jury's very much out on that.
Well, for sure. That look, they've got to get Calvin. Don't you think, whether they're immediate starters or not, you have to get 3 starters out of this draft in this 1st year at some point, right? Caleb Downs is going to start. And he'll be a day 1 starter. Malachi Lawrence is going to at least be in the rotation there at defensive end, or however they're going to call him. They're going to call him an outside linebacker or whatever. He has to, and then one other guy is going to really have to make a significant contribution here this year for this to work. And of course, getting D. Winters is going to make a difference as well. I mean, if you look, I know Calvin gives me trouble for citing Pro Football Focus, but if you look at his numbers, he was 47th among linebackers, which doesn't sound great, but it's pretty good. That's about league average. If he's like a 4, Kenneth Murray was like 87th. You
Woo.
know, to give you an idea of where the Cowboys linebackers ranked last year, Logan Wilson was just a little bit ahead of him. They did not have a good linebacking fit last year. So they've already got an upgrade in D Winters. Is he the ideal? Is he the long-term answer? I don't know. And maybe he is, and maybe he isn't. I hope that he is. As I've expressed before, that's one of my problems with the Cowboys is that the two positions that have been undervalued in the last few years have been a linebacker and safety, and because of that, the Cowboys just went all out on that. We don't care about those positions anymore. We'll just get some guy, some Joe, to come in and play them because they don't matter. And we've seen what has happened because of that. Those are also the kind of, if you want to call them, the thinking man's positions on defense. They're the ones who are in charge of everything, and the Cowboys have not had anybody in charge, and no less than Darren
But
Woodson has
Kevin,
said the
to,
same.
to your point, Kevin, I mean, is the ideal to get three guys who are in the rotation, or with two guys in the top 25 picks, do you need to get two guys who make significant impact? I mean, would you trade three guys being in the rotation for two guys making significant impact? I would.
Well, sure. I mean, look, this is the problem with the Cowboys defense, Calvin, right? They got 50 holes in it. I mean, and so they needed a lot of players. Uh, and I do think though you can get talked into that and think that, well, we need to get more because this is the way the talent ran in this draft.
Mhm.
There's really only about 12 true first rounders in the draft, 11 or 12. And then everybody else is in the first round is really kind of a glorified second round pick anyway. And so I don't know. Yeah, to your point, yeah, I would love to have had two significant impact players. I mean, I get the situation. They still could have taken one of those middle linebackers with the 20th or 23rd pick, right? They could have had Jacob Rodriguez. They could have had C.J. Allen. Both of those guys were considered players who could have stepped in and been impact players for you right away and long-term answers at that position. But the Cowboys valued the position over the player in this case, in my estimation. Now, maybe they had on their board, maybe Malachi Lawrence was in front of those guys too. I don't know. But it is the most important position. As I've noted before, Babe Loffenberg said the Cowboys need to get three things this year. And he said, edge rusher, edge rusher, edge rusher. That's what they had to get. And of course they did do that. They went out and got a couple of guys who are like that, not only in the first round, but in the third when they took from Michigan, and that should give Calvin PTSD that they took another
Well,
Michigan
about that
player,
kid. That kid was a
Jay
transfer
Sean
from
Barham.
Maryland. Yeah, Barnum. He's a transfer from Maryland, and at Maryland he played inside linebacker. And then Michigan did dumbass. They moved him out to the edge, and he was a better player playing an inside linebacker than as an edge rusher. So the Cowboys are going to put him as an inside linebacker where he had production. There's something about the water up there in Ann Arbor. You know what? I'm gonna go up there. I want to see what's going on up there because it's just none of their players make any sense with any team you go to. It's amazing. I mean, they get a
Yeah.
kid who's an inside linebacker, right? So they have a vision to put him outside at Michigan.
Yeah.
But
So you're saying that Jay Sean Barham is going to end up back at middle linebacker. So is he a depth piece at that point?
he's a depth piece because DeMarvion Overshown, a talented player, is in the last year of his deal, and he has a new agent. Your old friend David Muguleta is now representing Overshown, so that means
Wow.
Overshown believes he's going to get paid a lot of money. And if that's the case, and the Cowboys don't feel like they want to pay him, they have this kid from Michigan via Maryland that they could put at Overshown's spot possibly. So the Cowboys are thinking of the future, and yes, you want to get at least two starters and an impactful player in your top 100 players. If you have three picks in the top 100, that's what you're trying to get, right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think they've done that. Like C.J. Allen and Rodriguez both went in the second round, and the Cowboys did not have a second round pick. So it would take too much for them to get back into the second round. So they said, let's stay in the third round, and we're happy. And they focus on the fourth round because they have a history of getting good fourth round picks that eventually become starters.
So
I just think I think when you start talking about when you throw like C.J. Allen and and Jacob Rodriguez into this mix, along with Malachi Lawrence, the comp I get is that these are, for baseball, you'd call them Rodriguez and Allen are higher floor players. They may have lower ceilings long term, but they're higher floor players. I think with Lawrence, you're taking a guy that may have a higher floor or a higher ceiling because of the measurables. But do we have a real good feeling on what the floor is there?
Well, like I said, I do think that position mattered. They got to see, that's the problem with the Cowboys.
Position matters for sure, right? I mean, you're 100% right. Edge is the most important guy you can add on that defense. There's no doubt about that.
And they needed numbers there, frankly. This is what happens when you're changing your scheme, right? You put yourself in this position to do that. If they had not changed the scheme, if they had kept the 4-3 as their base package, then I could have seen them doing that. Although they still needed pass rush, So I don't have a problem with it as long as it works out. If it works out and he ends up being good,
that's a good policy, Kevin. That's a really good policy. As long as it works out, I'm happy with it.
Well, that's what you say. As they look, I won't complain at all until it doesn't work out. So that's what I'm going to say about all of it. Well, it'll be interesting. One last thing I want to ask about, because you brought up Overshown. That's a very interesting point. When he has played, he has looked tremendous. Of course, we said the same thing about Leighton Vander Esch and Jalen Smith, right? Is that when they played or when they were healthy, they were pretty good. They just were never healthy. It feels like to me, him being in the last year of his contract, and he thinks he's going to get a big contract. I can't imagine the Cowboys giving him one, given his injury history. Could you?
No, I can't envision that. I had one of those real conversations with Overshown last year. And I say real, that's what Brian Schottenheimer likes to say. I had real conversation with the players, right? So I had a real conversation with Overshown about the future because he's been hurt. Like almost every year he got in the league. Remember, he got hurt in the preseason his rookie year, right? I mean, and he is a good guy, right? He's a good kid. He's a good dude. And I said, hey, bro, you're messing up your future here by getting hurt. Not like you're jumping off buildings here on purpose here, but it's. He goes, I know. I'm like, and he's like, even he knows that if he would have been healthy for say the first 2 years of his career, he's good. He can get a second contract from the Cowboys, right? And he can pair him up with a middle linebacker, and then you're good for the next five more years after that. But his health has betrayed him. And now he's got to have a healthy free year. He cannot get hurt this year. And he's got to be able to show not only the Cowboys, but other teams that I'm healthy. And then when I'm on the field, I can make productive plays. And he doesn't get in trouble. He's a good guy, all those kinds of things. And so now he hires one of the top agents in the sport, and Mugoleta, and Mugoleta gets people paid, right? He's like Todd France. When you walk in the door with him, you're like, oh my God, right? So that's where he's at, but he's got to stay healthy, and I feel bad for him because he could play, but it's all about availability. And the Cowboys, when they got this kid from Michigan, that was a little bit of a sign to to that linebacker room, because they've revamped that linebacker room, right? They revamped the safety room. Like I asked Shotty, you can't keep all these safeties, right? He goes, no, it's okay, but we need some for special teams, and because they got PJ Locke, they got Jalen Thompson, they got Downs, they still got Malik Hooker, so they still got some safeties, and the linebacker room has changed too. You can't keep all those linebackers neither for the future. So Overshown definitely, I think he's seeing these things too now, and he's got to step it up himself. So that's a good thing, because you want competition, right, on your football team or any team in any sport.
Well, they've certainly added a lot to their defense, and we'll see if they're going to add anything more before training camp. I'm sure they will at some point. They need some more pieces to fill in around some of this stuff. Calvin, we appreciate you coming on with us. That was all good stuff. You're a tough grader, but that's okay. We don't mind tough graders.
Gave him a B.
Gave him a B.
I
gave
got
him
that
an A-.
12 o'clock at night, Kevin.
Yeah.
12 o'clock at night, I got that text from an old personnel man talking about why I give him a B.
I know. It's tough. It's
Kevin,
tough to get out there.
Calvin, let me just say this. Maybe the Cowboys are upset with you having a B, but you, in our book, you're an A.
I appreciate that, Evan.
An A- probably.
Appreciate that.
All right, there goes Calvin, tough grader. I gotta say, the limited teaching that I have done. I taught some sports journalism classes. I would really mark up the kids' stuff. It'd just be all kinds of stuff on there that I'm marking up, and then I give them, like a B- for something that was probably D work. I couldn't bring myself to give them that bad grade. I wanted to let them know they were wrong.
You know what, Kevin? That's why it's a good thing you're not teaching anymore, okay? Because people need to hear the truth.
Well, I was telling them the truth. I was just not giving them a bad grade for it. I think that was fair. I wanted them to know that this is not presentable, but I'm not going to, ruin your grade point average over all this. So I don't know. I probably should have, but I tell you that teaching, I couldn't imagine doing that now with all this AI and what are they turning in, and man, it's pretty crazy. I'd hate to think I was paying a lot of money for that too. Fortunately, all of our kids are all paid for their college education, so that's all done.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. We should have a little celebration over that.
We should have a celebration over that, which should be, because we can't celebrate over the Rangers, who, they pushed the Hall of Fame manager out the door, brought in the new guy, talked about how much they like the new guy, and it's just the same old team. Evan,
Kevin, you just still have a problem with this whole managerial change.
I don't have a problem with it, but if you're going to do something like that, you got to make sure that it works.
Yeah, well, let me tell you that it's a very simple story here, Kevin. This Rangers offense is not going to get going as a unit until the two best players in the offense get going. And Corey Seager and Wyatt Langford have not been off to great starts. Langford's been hurt now for most of the past 2 weeks and is probably going to miss this week as well. And Seager's not off to a great April. It's just that simple. When I went back and looked last night as we're taping this Tuesday, after a 4-2 loss to the Yankees, Corey Seager is just he's not off to a good start. And he's the number 2 hitter in this lineup unless he's the number 3 hitter. And he's the number 3 hitter when Wyatt Langford is productive. And the bottom line is the Rangers have had the 29th ranked production out of the number 2 spot, which we could both argue is the most important spot in the lineup over the course of the year. And that's just not going to get it done. And that puts stress on everybody else.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm not going to listen to anybody complain about the big bad ballpark either. When it doesn't keep the Yankees from knocking the ball out of it, it doesn't keep the A's from knocking the ball out of it. And that should be embarrassing to the Rangers to even say, yeah, I know that when I hit that ball, I thought that ball should have been out. Well, then you're talking about warning track power now. It's not keeping other people from doing it. This team has to start producing. I will say, Josh Young is off to an unbelievable start. Here after a slow start, he has really picked it up. He's been great. And Jock Peterson's a little bit better. Which really, as we talked about before, the issue is not them becoming what they were in the 90s or even the early 2000s and in the first 2 World Series teams. It's just being league average. If they could just get back to league average, then this team has a chance to win. So, Evan, tell me, is this offense league average?
Kevin, I can't give you that answer. I mean, at this point, no. I can't give you that answer long term until we see, Seager and Langford in some degree of I don't even want to say a hot stretch, but in some stretch of what we expect their career norms to be. If Josh Young has truly turned it around. And with each day, last night he hit second. He took a couple of walks. Josh had 4 at-bats last night, or 4 plate appearances, 2 walks. He had a single. He did get picked off by Max Fried, who's got the best pickoff move in baseball. And he had a double play grounder in the first inning after Nimmo singled. Even the double play ground ball was a good at bat. It was a 9-pitch at bat against Max Fried in the first inning. You're stressing the opposing starter out. It's been one good at bat after another, and we're not talking about a week now. We're talking about going on 3. And so hopefully Josh Young is made some real steps that are going to be long lasting. We saw Jake Berger get off to a really hot start, and he's faded. We've seen Evan Carter kind of be a little bit up and down. We know that Evan Carter remains not an offensive option against left-handed pitching. I think he's 0 for his last 32 now against left-handed pitching.
Brutal.
Going back to last June. But he does contribute defensively. And, we saw last week in the Pirates series his ability to change a single series by himself. He has that ability to do that. But it's got to be all right-handed pitching, basically, for him to do that. And so I don't know that I can give you an answer whether or not this can be a league average offense. I think there's still questions that have to be answered. The supplementary players, the complementary players, Young, I would point the arrow up. Berger, I'd give a little bit of credit to. Carter, I'd give a little bit of credit to. But
you didn't say Brandon Nimmo.
Franchise players have been so subpar that it takes away the impact of that.
Yeah, well, you didn't mention Brandon Nimmo, who's been terrific. Also,
sure,
so
Nimmo's been terrific, 100%.
So he's a big upgrade over Adolis Garcia in right field. Not defensively, but I'm just saying that from an offensive standpoint, he's been terrific. And look, I'm kind of resigned to now in Evan Carter that he's going to be one of those kind of guys whose numbers are not just his old baseball card numbers, his batting average and whatnot, are not going to be great. But because of what he brings to the table defensively, for the most part, although I thought the other night in that first inning when Kamar Rocker got in trouble and walked the 2 batters, and then Cortez hits the line drive to center field, he's got to get a better jump on that ball. If he gets a better jump, he catches that ball and Rocker gets out of the inning. But anyway, I think he's still kind of getting a few of the nuances.
You call Calvin a hard grader.
I know I am a hard grader, but you got to make those plays. If you're that player, you look.
But you gave him a B on that play, right?
I gave him a B on that play. Yeah, if you're that player, if you're and not everybody is a Gold Glover, and I don't know if he is or not. But you just got to have really good instinct. I don't think that his instincts are always great. Now, he as you wrote about the play he made to save, he went over the fence for the catch. That was a terrific play. And what I liked about that play is you could tell he had it from the very start. He had it sized up all the way, and that's what you want from your outfielders, is to have that kind of feeling that they know where they're going and what they're going to do on that play. So I'm good with what we're getting out of him, what the Rangers are getting out of him, and even Jock Peterson. His on base percentage is like 360 something. That's great. You'd like to think he gave you a little more pop than he's giving you, but at least he's doing that.
As we record this, his on-base percentage is 364, which is above league average. His OPS is 713, which is right at league average. His at-bats have all been really good. And look, I think Jock is as much as anybody, I think Jock is frustrated by the ballpark, but even he saw, like, you hit the ball to center field. He hit that ball at 108 miles an hour last night, and it carried, So, yeah, I think I'm just convinced at this point in time it's not the ballpark. I do, however, wonder if the fact that this is a little bit of a pitcher-friendly ballpark, and that it can be, and teams can still hit home runs, but what I always am going to wonder about is if that does get in the Rangers' heads and it impacts their at-bat quality. That's what they've got to fight against. It's not a physical difference in the ballpark per se that it's impossible to hit home runs here, but it does diminish some borderline balls, and you've got to guard against trying to do too much.
Yeah, no question about any of that. And they they just gotta perform. They Josh Smith has struggled at second base. We weren't really expecting that to happen so far. And but you're getting a much better performance out of Zeke Durant than what has happened out there for the last 2 years. So yeah, I'd say overall, I think that your point is an excellent one. I do think though that I want to ask you this too, and this did come up the other night, where they lost 2-1 and against the A's and weren't able to bounce to win that game, which they should have won that game was as many opportunities as they had. I love the drag bunt by Evan Carter to get on, and then you had the bunt by Josh Smith. He also gets on. I'm wondering here at with one out after just an awful at bat, by Danny Jansen, if with Sam Haggerty at the plate, do you think about squeezing there?
I'm going to be honest. Sunday's game I didn't see. I was on the road to Austin. By the way, I got it. Have you had Style Switch Barbecue in Austin yet?
No, I'm not.
Oh, I really enjoyed it. I'd been wanting to get there, and we got there on Sunday. It was great. So Sunday was the one game I didn't actually get to see physically. Um, I think in general, let's just say this. I think that Skip Schumacher has been pretty vocal about the idea that if the offense isn't going to just hit the ball all over the ballpark, they've got to figure out ways to manufacture runs. And so I think that that's something they've got to consider. Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, look, both of those bunts were terrific, and as the broadcast crew pointed out, no one is preparing for bunts anymore, right? And so the A's screwed up their positioning on Josh Smith's bunt in particular, and so if and that's something to me that the few times that Evan Carter is going to get to hit against left-handers, because in the game Monday night he struck out on 3 pitches against the lefty his last at bat, and I mean he wasn't close on any of those swings. So he's got to be thinking about that. I'm going to go up there and 1 out of 3 times against a lefty, I'm going to bunt.
Well, I mean, and, both of the strikeouts last night were against Freed. He did not face Tim Hill, who's kind of the side armor. Well, is a side armor, but I can't imagine, him having any opportunity to face a guy like that, and that's why the Rangers pulled him, even though it was another lefty following Freed. You can't see that ball, and he has problems picking up the ball coming from the left side. It's just that clear. And when the arm angle is going to be that exaggerated, I don't think there's any shot.
Yeah, yeah. So is there anything other updates we need to consider here, Evan? Is there anything in pitching? The bullpen is really held together so far. For all the complaining about it, it hasn't been an issue really, other than early on since those first couple of little blow ups with Chris Martin and Robert Garcia. It's been pretty good.
It hasn't been a liability for the last 3 weeks. And look, Gavin Collier has done a really good job. Peyton Gray's done a really good job. They're still really short sample sizes, but they've both done a good job. And if the Rangers get contributions from those guys, it's going to make it much easier for this bullpen to quote unquote overperform based on what preseason projections were. But I do think, and my column this morning was pretty straightforward. I mean, we can theorize about everything we want on the Rangers and the ballpark and all of that, but I just think it comes down to a pretty simple equation that until you get Seager and Langford going, this offense is going to struggle to score runs.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing about that on Seager in particular is just the chase rate has to be way up, isn't it?
I haven't checked Seager's chase rate lately. I've been so focused on Young's chase rate and how far it's come down, but that's something I do need to check is if Seager's chase rate is up compared to say his yearly averages.
He just seems to be really. I mean, there were a couple of at bats recently where balls just out of the strike zone, away, and that's
And
just
here's the weird thing, Kevin. This is just a statistical nerd type thing, but like Fangraphs, um, I could go easily on Fangraphs and look at swings outside the zone, but they give you one percentage, and then MLB Statcast, which you have to do a little bit more punching in of parameters. They'll give you an actual something that is labeled chase percentage, and the numbers are never the same. So there's something different in their formulas.
well,
I
that's
don't
nice,
know
isn't it?
if one is like constitute is calculating only swings and misses, or if it's simply swings outside the zone. But yeah, it is a little bit more labor intensive than usual to just kind of find that.
Yeah, not fun, not fun. But yeah, you're right. It is. Look, here's the thing. Seager's going to figure it out eventually. The problem is that he carries a heavy load on this team, and Langford does too, but much to a much lesser extent. Seager is the big dog in this lineup, uh, and it doesn't have a lot. There's not a lot of power potential in the rest of it. You can get some from Jake Berger. I mean, you might get a little bit from Josh Young now, it looks like, but who else is going to be hitting it out? There's not, there's probably not, I would say on this team, the guys capable of hitting more than 30 home runs is two, right? Berger and Seager.
Oh, I mean, I think Langford's got 30 homer capability.
He does, but he's going to have to do it before we can
Yeah,
see
he's
that.
got to do it first.
Yeah. So that's not a lot. There were times in in the former Rangers teams when you might have 5 guys in the lineup who could do that. So it does put a lot of pressure on him, and I think he handles the pressure fine. I don't know what his issue is now. Sometimes it takes him a little while to get things going, but then once he does, then he's a very dangerous hitter. All right, Evan, is there anything else we need to talk about?
Well, Kevin, what did you think about what Paige Bueckers said yesterday?
Oh, yeah. Listen, as anybody who's been keeping up knows, I got myself in some hot water with a lot of people over asking Azzi Fudd at her introductory press conference if she was still in a relationship with Paige Bueckers because they had made that announcement on TikTok last year and then had been in Glamour magazine in a story. And then the Wings shut all that down. And so Paige Bueckers got up at the media availability yesterday. I was not there. I'm actually on vacation. This is how I spend my vacations. So I was not there. Tim Kalishaw was there and wrote about it. And she made a statement saying that it's nobody's business but our own about our relationship. And okay, she made her point, and that's fine. It would have been good if maybe Azzi Fudd had been allowed to make that point when I asked the question. And if you're going to say that, I think you can make the point that, well, you kind of made it everybody's business when you put it out there on TikTok, and then you were in a story in Glamour magazine. I didn't. How was I to know that this is something that you wouldn't want to talk about when you talked about it previously, twice, as a matter of fact? So anyway, she's made her point, and we'll see where it goes from here. I wish them the best. They're talented players, and this Wings team should be much better than it was last year, which is not saying a lot. They only won 10 games last year.
Well,
But
my take on this is that, what Paige said yesterday is absolutely appropriate. And I respect everything that she said, that their relationship is their business. And if they choose to post photos or talk about it on their schedule, that's fine. And when they don't want to talk about it, they don't have to talk about it. I thought everything she said was eloquent. I thought the idea that, AZ is that they are complete professionals and that AZ was the number one pick because she earned it, all really eloquent. It still comes back to me that this is something that the Dallas Wings just shouldn't have shut down in the beginning. I think Azzi Fudd was completely capable of saying the same exact thing. And I think that message would have resonated with you and with everybody in that room that, hey, this is our relationship and we're going to handle the narrative on it, not you. and that's all fine. I completely respect that. I just think that, again, when the Wings step in and made it about, well, we're not going to talk about their relationship. Well, it's not your relation. It's not your position to determine that policy either. It's their position.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, I thought the same thing too. I still think that look, you cannot say when in every HR room across the country, they said, no, we're not going to allow spouses or significant others to work in the same department. And of course it does. It has happened in the WNBA. It happened last year at the Wings. Neither one of those players is still on the team, but they had a couple on the team. I just think that that it's if you're going to acknowledge there is a relationship, which they did publicly, then it's our right to say, okay, can this work? And I think that that's a legitimate point to make when
But
this
two
thing.
things can be true at the same time, right? I mean, what you're saying is 100% true, and it is certainly your within your rights to question that. And I think that there are implications. Like if this causes issues and it causes performance issues for either one, then that's an issue. But I also think the other thing that can be true is publicly they can determine, just as any couple should be able to, what we're going to talk about publicly.
Sure,
Um,
absolutely, and I don't have a problem with that at all, obviously. And look, I don't even want to ask this question, frankly, but I felt like I had to. I felt like it was a point that had to be made. So everybody acts like, oh, you're a lot of people are saying like you're just trying to get points. Like, yeah, I love to get the response that I got for
no,
that.
I mean,
So
I think if I'm interpreting it from a reader perspective, I think and from a journalist perspective too, I think you were trying to, the question that you asked was like, look, this is everybody has trouble navigating relationships sometimes, and when it involves the workplace, and this is a unique workplace, have you sought advice for that? That's a great question. I think where people take offense is, well, can you tell us if you're still dating? But you're just trying to confirm a factor. That's all you're trying to do.
right.
So
Yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to do. And and I even had some people who said, well, since she said it before, then why'd you have to ask it? I said, because it's 8 months later. That's why, because anything can change, I don't know. And look, here's the ultimate thing, right? In the end, is that there is a sense on my part, even from the people who defended all this, that there was something the matter with it. And the fact that they have a relationship. And that's the problem here, is that we should be way past that, because we talk about relationships all the time. We ran a story just the other day saying that Klay Thompson is no longer dating Megan the Stallion, right? So if that's a story, then why isn't this a story when people are teammates? I mean, I just think if we're pandering to the worst elements of our society if we're going to act like this is a bad thing. And it is not a bad thing, the relationship. Okay, let's just get that straight. And so
I think I think there's nothing bad about what you asked. I think there's nothing bad about two teammates having a relationship. I think there's nothing bad about the answer that Paige Bueckers gave. I think the only thing that was bad was the Wings deciding we're going to dictate policy and not the players.
Yeah, there's no question about that. All right, that's going to do it for our podcast this week. We appreciate you tuning in with us.
How about that, though, Kevin? Before we sign off, how about that we talked more about that than we talked about Cooper Flagg winning the Rookie of the Year?
Oh, that's right. We didn't mention that. And then that was a good thing. He should have won Rookie of the Year. The whole thing about that Concaneppel, but he was on that he was going to be, Vegas was saying he was the favorite. I don't know if that was true or not. Who knows if that was really the case, and that the backlash at the end of the year, and with Cooper having some really big performances toward the end of the year, swung the vote to him. I don't know if that was the case or not. But at any rate, if you ask every GM in the league, who would you rather have, Concaneppel or Cooper Flagg? That's a landslide for Cooper Flagg. Concaneppel's a nice player. I'm not saying he's not. He can really shoot it, and that's the one thing that Cooper can't do. But I believe in Flagg's work ethic and his talent ability that he will eventually make himself into a good shooter, and that will make a big difference on this Mavericks team when he does, because he does everything else. And you kind of hate to ask him to do one more thing because he's expending so much energy night after night on offense and defense to add something to his game. But he's going to have to.
I have
because at
one
some
question
point,
to ask you for a 15-second answer as we get out of here.
yes.
Cooper Flagg wins Rookie of the Year. Does that make this Maverick season, based on what expectations were going in, a success?
No, Lord, no. This team was supposed to be a playoff team. That's what Cooper Flagg thought. He was coming to the team to be the third wheel, and because eventually Kyrie's going to come back and Anthony Davis was going to be, the Hall of Famer that Anthony Davis is supposed to be. That didn't happen. So no, it's a disaster. But they get out of it a lottery pick, right? And we'll see where that goes. And this is it's interesting to see how both the Mavs and Wings are mirroring each other here, right?
Yes.
Yeah, mirroring. They both got lottery picks, 2 lottery picks in a row. Now the Mavericks are not going to get. I can't believe they're going to get the first pick in the draft again, but they're going to get a high pick out of this, and that's going to be very good for them. So in the long run, is it better that what happened, this year? Yes, it is better because they got rid of Anthony Davis. They needed to do that, and Cooper Flagg was able to grow probably a little bit more, being the centerpiece of the offense instead of the third wheel, and they're going to end up getting a better player in the draft than they would have gotten. So from that standpoint, yeah, it is better, but no, this was supposed to be a playoff team. Supposed to go place. They did. All right, that's it. We're not talking about anything else. So from everybody in here to everybody else out there, thanks, and we'll see you next time.